Welcome back to Cartoon Universe. My name is DEEPCUT, and last night, Steven Universe Future finally aired, and wow, do we have a lot to talk about. This 4-part opener wasn't exactly what I was expecting. There were many things I wished to see that simply didn't happen, but there were so many things they gave us that I didn't realize that I wanted or needed. We're gonna dive into all of it right here, right now. Fans were not entirely sure what to expect of this new sequel series when it was first announced. Until then, we were just expecting Season 6, and with rumors floating around that there was a 9-season plan, many of us didn't even know that Change Your Mind was going to be the climax to the current story. The night it aired, many of us still believed that it would end with Steven having to abandon Homeworld with the promise to try and come back to reach White Diamond, and God knows how many episodes later. When the episode wrapped up all of the major plot points in the show so far, we were pretty shocked. But we still didn't have any reason to believe that the next installment would be as far removed from the original as Steven Universe Future is. Rebecca Sugar had always hinted that Season 5 was going to be the end of the current story that they had planned, but we believed what was coming next would be a bit of a sequel, more of the same but with a new endgame to build into, and just as long. Steven Universe Future isn't really close to that, and honestly, that's a good thing. The original show ran for over 100 episodes, and the finale was so mesmerizing. It was a masterclass in storytelling, even if there were a few things that didn't quite hit the mark for me. Trying to follow it up with another 100 episodes of an entirely new story would likely not have worked out well for the show, especially without a break to really think about what they wanted this new story to be. Instead, Steven Universe Future was announced as an epilogue series. While I'm sure all of us know what an epilogue is, the exact definition is a section or speech at the end of a book or play that serves as a comment on or a conclusion to what has happened. In the context of storytelling, it is essentially a reminder of what was important about the story. In the case of a TV series, an epilogue is generally saved for the last scene of the show, or the last act of the final episode, or in some cases, an entire episode after the climax of the story, where all the characters are shown in their new norm. This new norm is often unrelated to the actual plot of the show, and is just meant to give you closure and letting you know what happened to all of these characters, oftentimes making sure that they have a happy ending, with a purposeful life, and people they love surrounding them. As far as I know, this has never been done with an entire mini-series before. Steven Universe has been a very unique experience, and this is just another experimental and, in my opinion, amazing idea that they have had. With it, we aren't just getting a small snippet of closure that is randomly thrown in, but rather each episode lets us get closure for an entire character or concept with context provided by the entire series thus far, with a season-long arc for Steven, and perhaps a few others, like Jasper. And oh boy, is that off to a good start. I think a lot of us were expecting our giant Cheeto friend to be reintroduced as a villain, but that isn't exactly what happened here. Jasper isn't plotting to overthrow Steven, she isn't crashing parties and causing trouble, at least not yet. She's just living on her own in the woods. She hates this New World Order and obviously wants to fight Steven, but what is really interesting about this is she is only willing to fight Steven if he is willing to fight her. She doesn't seek him out, and even when he enters her little sanctuary, she doesn't go for the battle. Instead, she waits until he agrees to fight before even throwing a punch, and that is what makes her happy. A large part of the series, both the original and this epilogue, is people finding things that make them happy. There was an interesting issue with this in most of the characters, in that they all wanted to rebel against Homeworld to some degree, wanting to break away from what was expected and demanded of them, yet many didn't walk that far away from their original purpose. Pearl was freed from being a slave, yet she chose to serve her diamond in a different capacity. Even when it comes to Steven, she tends to be on the more subservient side, helping with chores and laundry. Bismuth no longer has to erect spires and temples for the diamond elites, but still forged weapons for the war, and even continues to forge weapons as a hobby today. We had an entire episode about how little Homeworld gems need to continue doing work similar to their original purposes, because that is still a part of who they are. What was important to take away from the story is that they are choosing the context of their work. They are not simply being forced to do it for the benefit of the person who assigned them this work. As Amethyst pointed out, they made a choice. They are doing what they are designed to do, but they are doing it for themselves in ways that make them happy. And as for Jasper, fighting is her purpose. It is what makes her happy. We see when she gets giddy at Steven agreeing to fight. We see it when she fought Amethyst way back in Season 3 and smiled like a maniac as she said this was what she was made for. And boy, what a fight it was. The episode was storybided by two new members of the team, Paul and Drew, and this is a breath of fresh air in my opinion. Fight choreography was a really interesting aspect of earlier episodes in the series, with a lot of time going into making the battles look beautiful and fun. This was something that lessened over time though, and when Season 4 started, the fight scenes were almost non-existent. Even climactic clashes like with Aquamarine and Topaz were very by the books, with each character essentially announcing an attack and immediately being stopped by the bad guy in a not so interesting way. The battle against the Diamonds in Reunited was pretty good in terms of storytelling, but also felt rather generic in terms of actual fight choreography, with each character just jumping at Blue in succession. Even non-violent action sequences were really well done in early episodes, such as in Giant Woman, but not so much in future episodes. Sometimes you need to get new people involved to help create new and unique sequences, and I'm so glad they can finally do that. This isn't meant to be a criticism of the original crew. From what we understand, they were working around the clock non-stop, and until the very end, they still found ways to make the show amazing and beautiful and all of the above and more. But it does help to have some fresh perspectives when it comes to plotting out action sequences. There have been a lot of jokes recently comparing Steven Universe to an anime now that he is a teenager, such as calling it Steven Universe Shippuden or Steven Universe Z, and there were definitely anime vibes to this fight sequence. With Steven no longer a kid, having more serious action like this for him is a lot less awkward, and the show feels comfortable enough to just let him have these moments without trying to pretend they aren't happening. Like when Steven epically launched a statue at Bismuth in Season 3, yet while doing it, told her to watch out. The episode ultimately ends with Steven realizing that Jasper does have a purpose as long as he continues to fight her, and Steven realizes that this isn't something he can do just for her, but for himself as well. He realizes that he isn't as finished growing as he might have thought, and there are still things to learn, and someone like Jasper who pushes him might be the only one who can do it. Jasper doesn't quite accept this new purpose, but she doesn't reject it either. I'm sure this isn't the last we'll see of her, of course, and I don't think Steven is going to be as happy with her journey as he is at the end of this episode. They've hinted that someone is going to crash the little homeschool graduation in the future, and it is probably going to be Jasper. The whole point of this story was to show that she can push Steven out of his comfort zone, but to do that, you have to be willing to do things the other person isn't going to like, and that is going to lead to some more serious conflict down the road. Likewise, this is only the beginning of Steven's journey as well, much of which will be experienced through Jasper. This battle revealed Steven's seemingly new power, his pink aura that basically turns him into a Super Saiyan. While this was brought upon by anger, we see in the second episode that it doesn't have to be an anger issue, and the power can be accessed even in a fusion. Most of the time it comes out though, it is because of anger or some seriously heavy emotions, which makes sense considering every power Steven has is rooted in his emotions. Most of these emotions explored were on the more positive end so far though. Being happy makes his shield appear, for instance, while being sad isn't considered positive on its own. His meaningful and deep sorrow at the loss of a friend literally brought him back to life. But anger doesn't seem to have a positive context. Anger, unfortunately, is unavoidable though, and I think after such a long focus on how to be positive, the show needs to address how to deal with being angry or upset. And in many ways, just trying to be positive about it only makes it worse. It represses it, or insists that being angry is not okay. Steven's journey is going to be about learning to control his anger, and perhaps along the way he'll also teach us how to use our anger in positive ways, how to make it one of our flaws that help define us that we don't necessarily need to fix, but rather to work with, like Amethyst's insecurity, Pearl's obsessive nature, or Garnet's codependency. Now Steven has to deal with his own problems, his real internal problems like anger that not only he had, but his mother as well. We can see through the various flashbacks that happened that Pink Diamond did eventually learn how to control her anger, so Steven might want to actually learn how to be like his mother in this regard. Considering how much the last few seasons of the show have been about him wanting to prove that he's not like his mother, this will actually be a very interesting turn of events, actually learning from something positive she did, because she did grow along the way. That's all I have for you guys today, but obviously we'll be back every day we can with more videos. We didn't have enough time to cover every episode last night, so look out for our hot takes on those, and I'll see you next time.